if you were president, what would you do?
If I was president.
I'd prefer it to be something that you think is a fact, or we can talk about the word fact, rather than me
No,
give you what to talk about because
no.
what
I think what what really needs to be talked about is something that's of pressing importance
exactly.
to our situation.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect. Perfect.
so
So what would be an example of that?
I think like economic inequality, like the fact that there are a lot of people in the streets, and that this it's not just homelessness, but it's also poverty that's growing. That we're facing what uh, uh, a, really what amounts to, in my opinion, is a crisis. The fact is, the dollar, when our current president was elected, is now worth 50 cents or less.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's a fact.
Do you want to talk about that? Because
And
the,
what
the
effect does that have on people? Like,
yeah,
what effect is that having on people's lives?
the idea with my project is that we choose one idea and we stick with it, and I just ask you questions about that specific idea. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay.
So,
Daniel, you said, right?
yeah,
Daniel. My
Daniel.
name's David.
David,
Good
right.
to meet you.
That's fine.
D
David,
A N I E L.
that's correct. Just like in the Old Testament.
Okay. Me too.
Uh huh.
All right.
Right.
So the conclusion that you hold, if I'm understanding correctly, is that the dollar uh, value has gone to 50 cents since the last election. Is that
Let's just say in the last 4 years.
okay? The
Yeah,
last 4 years?
yeah. The value of the dollar has been cut in half.
Okay.
Okay. And I think, this is the first time, uh, because of, various factors, the labor shortage has contributed finally to a rise in wages, which we haven't seen since the 90s. Okay, wages remained pretty steady, even though I think that really the dollar's value has been falling since then very steadily. Wages remained the same
Okay.
since the 90s. It's only now that we have a crisis in labor, like a shortage of labor, that wages have actually risen. But
Okay.
that's nowhere near enough to compensate for what I see as, uh, the actual inflation. Okay.
Okay.
So,
So what you're saying is In the last 4 years, the dollar value has been cut in half. And so when you say 4 years, do you mean October of 2019?
I don't know. I really don't. I really can't say, but I just feel like, since President Biden took office, let's say we could say that.
Okay, that's the criteria that we're using.
I think that the dollar's value since then has been halved.
Okay. Since Biden was elected. Okay.
Let's just put it like that. Now it's not even really my opinion. It's something that I've been told.
You've been told.
Yes. But I think it is a fact that what what we're experiencing here is a devaluation of the money.
Okay. What I heard was you feel like this is happening and you've been told that this is happening and you consider it a fact.
I consider it to be a fact that, and I don't know what the exact, um, I could be wrong as far as the exactness of the value of the dollars, but our buying power, I think, just in these recent times, more or less the last 4 years, has been cut in half.
Okay. Scale 0 to 100, how confident are you that this is a fact?
Um, yeah, that's a fact. Well, I mean, let's look at gas prices,
What's the number that you would put on your percentage of confidence for that?
I mean, I'm pretty confident, but let's say with, I think relative certainty, anywhere from 75 to 80% certainty at least.
75 to 80?
Sure.
Okay. What would cause you to be more confident?
Well, I mean, if I could really look at prices all across the board, you know,
So like data?
yeah, if there was some data,
Okay.
I don't have it. I haven't been studying it or following it that closely,
Okay.
but I do feel like, and and sure, just because that's true today doesn't mean it will be tomorrow. Like companies might wake up to the fact that they're charging way too much for things.
You're open to that changing.
Sure, but
Okay.
as far as like prices for basic things, like today, I bought cigars for $1.06. Like they're still 99 cents. Okay, at the gas station, the cigars are still 99 cents.
Some things
But
some things have risen, some things haven't.
but but our basic needs, the things that we need most, food, uh, rent, okay, coffee, even,
Coffee, yeah. It's definitely a necessity for me.
right? The the prices have gone, through the roof. We're paying like at the Starbucks, let's say, coffee is going to cost you now over $3 just for a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
At the nice cafes where you get to sit down and whatever, you're going to pay almost $5 for your cup of coffee.
Yeah, that's nuts.
And I think that, even in the last few years, you could still get it for $2 and change. Even at the nice places, you could. But if you want to go and get some cheap cup of coffee at McDonald's or something, okay, you might pay $2 and change for that. Still.
Would you
So,
what would you say is the biggest reason that supports your 75 to 80 confidence, that you feel like it's happening, that you've been told that it's happening, or coffee prices?
no, I don't think it's just the price of coffee that I'm talking about. I think more it's in terms of like rent
Uh-huh.
and food prices,
You're
necessities. Just because I feel like coffee is a necessity, that's why I put,
yeah,
more importance on
yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's what I buy,
Okay.
coffee and cigarettes, because I can't even afford to buy food
Uh-huh.
generally.
Yeah.
If I get some money, like, but like today, because I got a $10 bill, you know, it's not because, I bought a pancake and an egg. And that's all I had to eat. That's the only hot food I've had since Friday. Someone bought me an egg sandwich or something on Friday. I couldn't have even afforded it. This person was homeless, but happens to have some work. I mean, what am I really getting at? What I think is important, why do I even say, uh, I want to say it's a fact, but the fact, the real central fact that I'm getting at is that um, you can't afford to, make ends meet. Like the average working person is working for less money than it costs to maintain themselves, and a person like me who's then beholden to strangers for just the basic necessities of life because I lost my ID, so I'm not even allowed to work. Every place is hiring. No place could even hire me if they wanted to
Because you don't have your ID.
because I just lost it, 6 months ago.
How do you get another one?
You have to have somebody send you all your documents. Then you need to find a place that'll let you have an address, let you use their address because how could I? I can't afford the rent.
You need documents and an address.
Yeah, you know. So then you need to get work. Well, most people won't even consider you if they know that you're homeless. You almost have to lie about that. So, how do you come back up off the streets? And then, so you go into the public bathroom here and it's totally trashed. There's no toilet paper in there because somebody who's obviously living on the streets is mad and has stolen it all or just torn it off the roll and
Uh-huh.
thrown it on the floor, let's say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You go to the,
Out of anger.
probably, or frustration,
Mm-hmm.
you go to the, like I arrived here on Friday. Only reason I didn't have to walk from Hendersonville, I walked from Greenville to Hendersonville, you know, because you,
I have no idea how far that is because I'm not from here.
right,
How far is that?
it's 60 miles from Greenville to here. So Hendersonville is like halfway.
Okay.
So I think that's like 30 miles I walked.
Uh-huh.
And it was a homeless person who had a job actually bought me breakfast and gave me $20. So I was able to get coffee, you know, and some fruit or whatever and make it here.
Uh,
What am I getting at is, it's just that like we can't afford to live anymore. The people who are at the bottom and the people who are at the top, it seems like they're making more and more money. They're just like laughing and drinking and talking about how many hundreds of thousands of dollars they're going to make this year or whatever, and next year they want to make millions. Meanwhile, the average working person can't make ends meet at all. How long can this go on?
yeah.
How are we going to do this? And this is why in other places in the country they're importing all these immigrants in who can live, you know, 10 to a room or whatever, or in a part like 10 people in a 2-bedroom apartment or whatever. This is the only way that uh, the work can even get done. And here, this is why all of the jobs are everyone's hiring, because how you can't even afford to live with $15 an hour, or whatever. Like,
Yeah, it's a pretty messed up situation, and it sounds like your particular situation um, is pretty frustrating.
it's even more difficult. And then, of course, all these other people, like, okay, what I understand is that if you're seeking, I don't know if you're recording any of this or not, but
Yeah, we're recording.
okay,
Is that cool?
that's fine.
Okay.
If you're seeking asylum, let's say, you're from Nicaragua where there's a dictatorship and there's no work at all. I talked to a guy whose family, uh, he's got a relative in Spain who's been sending money to his family for the past few years. And that's the only money that they have had coming in. And Walmart gives scholarships, to these people, so they get a way to come here to the United States and seek higher education. Great, and this guy that I spoke to, he gets 2 years to live and work in the United States. So he's come to live with his relative who was giving, the like gave him that opportunity to live in Greenville. And this is when I got off the bus from Atlanta into Greenville. So for 2 years, then he gets to stay here and work. They call it parole. And since he's so far in debt, then to this person who's been sending the money from Spain, who's also a part of the state, he's just hoping to be able to pay off those debts and then go back to Nicaragua with something. Fine, I don't knock it. Me, I don't even get to work. And he thinks it's a joke, the idea that there's an American who doesn't have documents and can't work. That's a joke. That's, to them, they don't even understand how that's possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the bureaucrats somehow put up these impossible uh, barriers.
Do you want to talk about your options? Like, my question would be, what do you think your options are?
Well, yeah, okay, sure. Um, Stay in Asheville. There was no way. I went to Atlanta. I had some relatives there. I thought maybe I could get things done there. I did receive some mail, so I was able to get the documents that are mostly required to get an ID so that I could get a job. In the 2 weeks that I was in Atlanta waiting for my paperwork, the number of people who were homeless, or who at least who were on the streets with me and in the place that I was receiving mail, the number of people who were seeking services at this church tripled easily,
Just with the time that you were there.
just in the 2 weeks that I was there. When I got there, it was like there were 25 people, 30 people maybe. When I left, there was 100 or more in the same place.
So your one option would be to hang out with relatives and try to get documentation.
Nope, because that's not an option for me, because they're so religious or whatever. They believe that because I smoke cigarettes, or because I don't have a job in the first place, just because I'm unemployed, that I'm living an immoral life, and they can't associate with me. So whatever their brand of Christianity, it's like their morality is more important than the idea that they should be helping you,
Wow.
which is, to me, is contrary to the Christian beliefs,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So that's not an option.
It's not.
Okay, what what is an option?
An option might be live here on the streets of Asheville and get uh, a church to give me an address and
Okay.
and then apply for the ID and wait until that comes through. That's one option. Or another option is to go to another state and for roll the dice again. Go to Tennessee or something where maybe there are fewer people seeking help and where there is, the same amount of assistance available. I don't know what's better.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Uh, what do you think the solution is for this issue? Generally, not necessarily for you personally, but like for the stepping back and looking at the situation as a whole, what do you think the solution is?
It's a really good question. Um, because obviously, like, there's plenty of work. Everyone seems to be hiring. All these places seem to be hiring. There's more work than there are workers to do it. And so then how do you make the connection between the people who need the work and the people who need the jobs to be filled?
How does the value of the dollar affect your situation?
Well, because everyone is, having a harder time making ends meet, then there's less help available because people who would be willing to help you can't,
Okay,
because they can't even make ends meet for
themselves,
themselves.
yeah. So the value of the dollars or the value of the dollar affects you because the likelihood that somebody can help you is less.
Because the ability of people to be able to help you is lessened. Yeah, they have less money available, period. So they're less able to help anyone. They can't even make ends meet for themselves because the wages that they're making no longer equal the expenses that they have. And the expenses are rising for them, constantly. Rent is going up. Uh, People are being evicted from their houses, and so they have to find a new place to live. And the rent that they're going to have to pay to get into that is greater than what they were having to pay before. You know,
Gotcha.
they're being evicted because people want to raise the rent on them. And the only way they can do that is to make it so, those places are open. They can't, there's rules against how much you can raise the rent on the people that are living there, let's say. If you just say, oh, well, you can't live here anymore because whatever, we need to remodel the place, or, then you can raise the rent a whole bunch more. You can justify it. What's happening where I was living in New Orleans, it was just across the board, tons of evictions. And once they can get those places empty, then they can raise the rent.
Right.
So this is why they have an interest in, evicting.
I wish things were different for you, um, just personally. Um, do you have time for one more question? One or
Sure.
two more
I mean,
questions?
I have time. Sure.
Okay. If you were president, what would you do?
If I was president, don't know. I'd make it so that there was money for affordable housing,
How would you do that?
for one thing.
What steps would you do to do that?
I would try to influence my own party, I guess, to put some kind of bill or fund. I would create funding for that. So
Create funding?
sure, I don't know how does the president says he wants money for the Ukraine or something. He's like trying to get weapons or whatever. What do they do? How do they do that? They send money to foreign countries, or whatever. Well, why can't we put money down for there to be housing for people in the United States? I mean, how is it that people come back from Afghanistan and they're living on the streets? I met a wounded veteran, a guy who'd been shot in the back with an AK-47 in Afghanistan. Okay, just an ordinary grunt, and his armor plate saved his life. His rib cage was separated from his spine by the bullet. Uh,
Wow.
and he's sitting in front of the CVS begging for beer, living on the street. How is this possible?
Yeah,
I,
that's what I
you
was going
know,
to ask. Like, why isn't there more funding?
why are even our own veterans coming back and they don't have any assistance?
Do you know?
I talked to another guy who's in the army about it. He said, well, the army doesn't give you a crash course in life. Okay, they don't even help you when you're wounded and you're sent back to this country. They don't give you any help. I don't know why that is.
How could we find out?
Well, I mean, it's just a question that you would have to ask the people who are responsible for that. I don't know. What's the criteria for people being helped? Like I was going to say, people who come from other countries like Nicaragua or Honduras where there's violence, where they ask for political asylum. What I understand is when they come into the country, they get $50,000.
Wow.
And yeah, you know, and
They all get 50K.
and they get $50,000 and they get their 2 years parole so they can work and go back to their country. Me, I'm fleeing from violence in New Orleans. You know what I mean? And I don't get anything.
Wow.
You know how many people are dying in New Orleans every day from the violence that's going on there? Fleeing from that, you get nothing.
Like a domestic refugee.
There's no classification for that.
So what are you going to do about it?
I'm just trying to find work. I'm just trying to get my ID so that I can even look for work in the first place.
Yeah.
Which so far I've been unsuccessful doing. I tried it in Florida. I tried it in Atlanta. I'm getting ahead. I'm getting there, step by step.
Yeah.
But who's helping me? It's the churches. Or it's just ordinary people. Like I said, the poorest people are the ones that generally help you. Or, the old people who realize they're about to die and they can't take it with them.
That's interesting. The poorest people are helping out the poor people the most. Would that be accurate?
Sure. Because they know what it's like. Because they've been there. Or it's, like I say, the people who have religious beliefs and convictions.
It seems kind of backwards, doesn't it?
Sure does. Sure, and you look around and the people who have the most money just laugh at you. I don't want to say they literally spit on you, but figuratively speaking, they do. They're making fun of you as they go about their, spending of thousands of dollars on their clothes and their dinners and their cars and whatever.
Do you think they should be forced to help you?
I think that's kind of contrary to the idea of freedom that we have in our country.
Okay.
No, I don't think they should be forced to help. And I think that socialism is also contrary to what.
If they were forced to help you, would you receive the help?
I don't think that the government would put me in a position to receive the help either.
Just hypothetically, if tomorrow Biden said everybody that makes over $1 million a year is going to be forced to give folks like you 50K, like 50K lump sum, would you take it?
I'd take it, but I think that they would find some way to make sure I wasn't qualified.
Yeah, I'm just hypothetically.
I don't
speaking.
have faith in the government. I don't believe that the government would. I think they would make it so that there was some way, that I wouldn't receive it.
Kind of like with the needing an ID to get the job.
For example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would need. There would be some requirement that I couldn't fulfill.
Yeah, but if you could take it, you would.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you have any thoughts about the subject? About what I consider, that we have a crisis of poverty and homelessness, and that more people have become homeless this year than any other year previously because the rent is going up, because the wages don't match up to what the requirements are for making ends meet in life.
Yeah.
Do you have some thoughts about that?
I think it is a messed up situation. I don't know what the solutions are. And I think we're on the same page about someone being forced to be charitable. I don't think that somebody should be forced to be charitable, because then it's not charity, right?
Right.
I do, however, I would say that there's a certain amount of social safety net, I guess is the term, that a civilized society should have.
And I think the money's already there. I'm sorry, to interrupt.
No, this is I'm
Yeah.
interviewing you, so
Right.
please.
I think the
continue.
money's there. I don't think that there's any, the taxes are already being levied.
Gotcha.
And
And
they're
they're just
just
being
not
spent
being
on-
spent on helping the people who need it. I think that the taxes are being given to, for political reasons, they're being given to other causes or to other people.
You said like foreign wars and stuff.
Foreign wars, also, I hate to say it, but immigrants who are being favored rather than our own people in this country.
Can I ask another hypothetical question?
Sure.
Let's say somehow that all funding to foreign wars was stopped, and that funding was put towards situations like yours. And they did that for 5 years, or 4 years, we'll say 4 years. And at the end of the 4 years, the homeless situation was worse. What do you think explanation for that would be?
I don't know. I think we're departing from the facts there. That's speculative.
Yeah, it's a hypothetical situation. I'm just
No.
curious,
Um,
what if you had another explanation for why things are the way they are, other than because it's being spent on spent irresponsibly, we'll just say.
well, I mean, this is obvious. Like, there again, that soldier I spoke to who bought me a meal when I was in Atlanta going to visit my relatives. You know, I walked for 18 hours just to get to the town where I had heard there, because I didn't have a way to get in touch with them. And so I was told where the church was that I could find them at. And I made it to the town in 18 hours. I walked in the rain, and the soldier was the one who bought me a meal. I stopped just for some hot water at an IHOP or something, because it was in the middle of the night. And as I was walking out, he said, "Wait, I bought you some food." And we spoke, and he said that the government spends way more money than it has to on things. Just like a lighter, he said they spend $500 on a lighter that he said could cost he could find it at Walmart for $120, but instead they spend $500 on it. And that was just one example.
Yeah.
They spend way more money than is necessary. You know, they're wasting it.
Do you think he should have been able to do that?
That they should have, yeah, they should be able to, he should be able to get the same lighter for $120, and the government shouldn't have to spend the other $300.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, they buy things for prices that are way too
I see what
high
you're saying, yeah.
because they don't care how much it costs.
Gotcha.
They just, you know,
Anything else you want to say? I'm going to get going here.
okay. No, that's fine.
I really enjoyed talking to you.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
I wish that your situation were different, and I hope that it continues to improve.
Well, the only thing I could ask is, have you got a couple of dollars I could go and get something to eat with?
It's really coming down. Do you have something in mind?
So, what's your plan? You're going to stay here?
Well, I'm just gonna look into it. You know, I've got a list of places I can go. There's a church that could give me an address, ostensibly. There's various places I can go to get free food. So I'm gonna see if I can possibly stick around long enough to get my ID replaced, because I have the paperwork, and you know, and then see about getting some work, because I went to Black Mountain and came back, and I mean, I saw 10 places that are hiring. I don't see why one of them shouldn't hire me.
Yeah.
You know, and for $15 an hour, you know, if I'm living in a tent or something, that'd be fine for me.
Yeah.
I could do that, you know, and then I could even just knock heads for 90 days or 6 months and save up money.
Yeah.
I don't see why I couldn't do that. But so far, you know, just looking at what's happened so far, I'm not real optimistic about it. But I mean, I've done it before. I certainly have come up off the streets before. I did it in New Orleans. If it wasn't for the violence there, I could have continued.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say?
I guess that's about all. You know, just,
Do you ever get a chance to go on YouTube at all?
no.
Okay. Like go to the library or anything?
Oh, well, yeah, there is they actually have headphones at the library here,
Yeah.
so I could. But that's the lack of headphones that's been keeping me from
Okay.
looking on YouTube lately.
Gotcha.
Mostly that I just haven't had a pair of headphones.
Do you have a phone?
No.
Okay. I can write down um, my YouTube channel, and I can give it to you. That
Yeah,
way.
I've got a pen right here too.
Okay, I've got one here too if you need it. Um, it's sound epistemology.
Capitalized?
I think if you just type it in, if you just search sound epistemology, you should be able to find it. The picture will be of a ferry boat. Sound like the Puget Sound, because that's where I'm from.
Okay.
That's where my road trip started.
Yeah.
And then epistemology, as you probably know, being a student of philosophy, like you said, is how we know stuff.
Source of knowledge or
Theory of knowledge, yeah.
theory of knowledge.
Yeah. And so if you go on YouTube, you can find my channel there. And yeah, it'd be cool if you ever want to check it out. Yeah, I've got about, I don't know, 100, 150 of these conversations.
What's the
On there.
difference between epistemology and ontology?
Ontology is what we know. Epistemology is how we know it.
Reason I ask, because I was reading a science fiction book.
Yeah.
Just finished it last night, and it said that the idea. This would be something else I could say. The idea that the fourth dimension is time is fine for epistemology, but not for ontology.
Ah.
How does that do? Can you say anything about that?
Well, if they're using the reason of how they know that the fourth dimension is time, that would be the epistemology of it. Like, the ontology is the fourth dimension is time. The epistemology is how we know that the fourth dimension is time.
What it seems to me is it's saying that we don't really know that the fourth dimension is time. But how do we know? How do we know that if we don't know it?
How could we know?
So I'm not sure how that fits in. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's what the author was saying, that the idea is fine for epistemology but not for ontology.
Yeah. It's so you can have reasons for believing something, but that doesn't
mean that it's true.
right.
I think we got to our facts idea there. Just because you have a reason for believing something doesn't mean that it's true.
Right.
Okay, we got somewhere.
Yeah.